Happy Friday! I'm Lupine Fiasco, and this is Daily Fab Gameplay. If you've been reading Fab Twitter, then you've seen your feed blowing up with doom and gloom about part the Mistveil as more pros are testing for Amsterdam. With the disclaimer that Twitter was practically made for complaining, and a second disclaimer that someone somewhere will always hate popular things, I want to take a day to dig into where this frustration might be coming from. I mean, it's Zen, but why is it Zen? And is it only Zen? Speaking of Zen, I want to take a quick minute to shout out Flesh and Bad, a new channel posting Zen gameplay and commentary. If you're struggling to play the deck and want instruction from someone who racks up wins like they rack up tigers, give Flesh and Bad a watch. That's where I go for all of my Zen tips and tricks, and a link to that channel is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider a subscription to my channel, Daily Fab Gameplay. It's free to do and helps me out a ton. Links to my Twitter, Patreon, and deck lists on Fabry are there as well. Returning to Mistveil, I'll give one last disclaimer that fun is subjective, and if you're enjoying playing with or against the Mystic Heroes, don't let anyone discourage you from that. I'm not here to yuck your yum. Play what you enjoy without shame. That said, some prominent players have strong opinions about the set, and many of them are negative. This isn't the first time Ninja or Illusionist have dominated a meta. It is the first time for Assassin though, props to them. But there is a new feel to this level of oppression. I believe the crux of the issue boils down to a single word: interaction. Interaction has a lot of weight behind it and can mean different things to different people, and is usually influenced by the hero you're playing and what you're playing against. Guardian players interact favorably and often with Ninja players. Guardians block Ninja well and have meaningful on-hit effects. Meanwhile, those same Guardians interact very unfavorably with Wizard players. All that armor and all those defense reactions don't mean a thing against 200 points of wildfire-enhanced arcane damage. The point being that ninjas might complain about the level of Guardian interaction, while wizards just laugh and laugh. Every class has ways to interact with every other class, and while some are certainly better than others, we've had consistency up until now. Ninjas, in the form of Katsu and Fai, thrive off big hands against poor defense. The way to slow down a ninja is to take resources away from them. For example, Frostbite denied their literal resources, Spinal Crush denied their action points, and Pummel denied cards in hand. Alternatively, you could block. In Katsu's case, blocking would deny the hero power, but for both ninjas, blocking until they ran out of gas was a viable way to fatigue the deck. Assassins, in the form of Arachne and Uzuri, get value by encouraging blocks on Leave No Witnesses, Surgical Extraction, and Shakedown, among others, and get additional value if the blocks don't cover the damage because of attack reactions, be they pumps or hero powers. However, the attacks still need to hit, or at minimum have a target to be effective. For example, your opponent needs a card in Arsenal for Leave No Witnesses to be properly threatening. Illusionists, in the form of Prism and Dromai, play above-rate attacks or build board states, and very often both. The advantages generated by these lines of play are tempered by Spectra or Phantasm, as even the strongest attacks or auras can be destroyed by just a single card. Dragons were trickier to deal with, but could still be attacked directly and without any influence from the opposing Dromai. These classes and heroes were introduced to the game at different times, but the ways in which we can interact with them have remained consistent. Block or disrupt Ninja, block or outplay Assassin, pop Phantasm, and break Spectra. Every Mystic hero broke that consistency. Let's start with Zen, boogeyman of the format and top of everyone's hit list. Zen is much greater than the sum of his parts, and an understanding of those parts is key to understanding why he's so strong. On a macro level, Zen doesn't ever need to hit to reach his damage ceiling. Unlike Katsu, Zen can use his hero power whenever he has a chi in hand, noting too that an opponent can't stop you from transcending. If you have the correct combination of instants, there is no effect that says no. If Zen has a chi, he can find whatever he needs from his deck with zero counterplay. This feeds into further uninteractivity, as Bonds of Ancestry, Chase the Tail, and Aspect of Tiger Body also don't need to hit to reach their damage ceilings. If blocking can't stop Zen from going off, then we look to Disruption as a way to deny him resources, and Nuus' success in the later weeks of National Season does point to it as the best strategy for beating the top deck. The problem is, very few classes besides Assassin and to a lesser extent Guardian can produce this constant stream of disruptive effects. Classes like Warrior or Brute can play disruptive generic attacks like Command and Conquer or the Weakest Link, but here we see another way in which Zen breaks the dynamic established for Ninja. Zen, unlike Katsu or Fai, has 7 points of armor. Historically, the best Katsu deck would present 5 points of armor, 2 on his head and 1 on everything else. At best, only 2 of that was usable in the early game, as giving up his mask or tunic was a last-ditch effort. Fai had a slightly better time with it, as his armor could block 7 over the course of a game, though only 6 at any given time due to Flamescale Furnace needing a second turn to extract full value, though that would also sacrifice the offensive power from his mask. Zen blocks the most damage out of any ninja whenever he needs to, and nets offensive resources by doing so. As a years-long ninja player, to put this in technical terms, the ability to block out with armor and start your turn with 2 extra cards in hand is bananas. 7 block covers Command and Conquer, the Weakest Link, crush effects of Spinal Crush and Chokeslam, and it covers all of that with might. On a micro level, Zen blocking 1 with his boots makes him a tiger that can be banished to Art of War. On a micro level, about 80% of Zen's blues might as well be reds, either through raw power, as in Levels of Enlightenment or Ancestral Harmony, or through literally pitching to tutor a red. On a micro level, Zen's chest generates resources at the rate of Fyendal Spring Tunic while blocking at the rate of Flamescale Furnace, and can turn a chi into upwards of 10 more block, which is a conservative estimate depending on the matchup. Simply put, Zen fixes all of the problems associated with being a ninja without sacrificing any of the benefits. Next, we'll turn to Nu. If Assassin Counterplay says that you either block disruptive attacks or position well enough that you don't need to, then Nu adds a third step, which says you also can't have specific cards in hand, or in some cases, any cards at all. It doesn't matter if you're positioned well enough that you don't need to block, because Siren's Call will often make that decision for you. And if you don't have a blue, that's no problem either, because if Nu has Chi in hand, she'll double down by forcing you to banish a card to Mask of Recurring Nightmares. Bonds of Agony and Persuasive Prognosis put you into a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Nu will banish your cards whether you block or don't. All of his banishing and blocking wouldn't do much to help Arachne or Uzuri. Fatiguing you may be their plan, but removing cards from your deck doesn't inherently make them stronger. But Nu adds an additional variable to the matchup, as filling your banish zone with blues is in many ways how she kills you, by combining her hero power, Undercurrent Desires, her dagger, her boots, flick knives, hurl, and any other go-again she has slithering around. And, returning to our theme of interactivity, aside from the slight comfort of being able to block a Mistblade, you cannot prevent Nu from doing any of this. On a micro level, Nu has an extra offensive resource compared to her generic counterparts in the form of a Rousing Wave. For Arachne and Uzuri, who often equip flick knives, Leave No Witnesses always attacks for 4 power, and Command and Conquer always attacks for 6. Outside of flicking Nerve Scalpel at a defense reaction, there is no trickery to be had here. A Rousing Wave breaks that math. Command and Conquer is 6 damage unless it's 7, and Leave No Witnesses is 4 damage unless it's 5. If you've played against Katsu, you know the effect that breaking scales can have on a game and all blocking decisions involved, and thanks to part the Mistveil, Assassin, but only the one, gets that effect too. Simply put, Nu gets to do what neither Assassin before her could: attack your hand regardless of how you do or don't block, all while turning the cards taken into a late game win condition. Finally, let's talk about Enigma. Illusionist has been doing dumb, overpowered nonsense for years, be it aura spam, herald aggro, or just, existing. That said, there was counterplay. If your opponent was spamming auras, you could fill your deck with Go Again to let you attack face, then clear Spectra. Or if your opponent attacked with nothing but heralds or dragons, you could fill your deck with 6+ power attacks to trigger Phantasm by blocking. Both inherent weaknesses acted as safety valves to help go-wide decks counter heralds and go-tall decks counter auras. Enigma's auras have no such weaknesses. Instead, they have ward. Heralds can attack or block. Auras provide powerful effects at the cost of not blocking. Ward cards both attack and block and allow no way to punish them for doing so. Waxing Spectre is a 2-card 7. For the cost of a blue, the Spectre will attack for 4, then play defense for 3. And God forbid you don't kill the Spectre the turn after it's played, or it will continue to accrue value. And more troubling is the inability to directly attack an aura with ward. If Enigma plays her Waxing Spectre, or Waning Vengeance, or Manifestations of Miragai, then passes the turn to you, she now has 4 cards in hand to defend that aura. Assuming she drew 4 3-blocks, the onus is on you to either deal more than 12 damage all at once, or across multiple chain links to remove the aura as, unlike with Prism's aura, these can't be attacked directly. This also assumes that Enigma wants to use her hand for defense. Depending on her draw, it may be to her advantage to let you clear the ward, preventing damage in the process, then rebuild with what she drew, putting the responsibility of dealing with her nonsense back on you. And, of course, the ward auras don't have Phantasm. When Enigma pays 1 to attack you for 8 with Go Again, you either block that in its entirety, or take some damage while keeping in mind that cards you use for defense can't be used to destroy it on offense. Historically, the way to interact with Illusionist was to destroy their attacks or their board. Enigma takes all that interaction away and replaces it with a damage check that many heroes simply cannot pass. Having now pitched the strengths of Mystic heroes, I'd be lying if I said they can't be beaten. Dash has proven strong enough to beat both Enigma and Nuus, and fast enough to compete with Zen, taking advantage of Mechanologist All-Stars T-Bone and Meganetic Shockwave. Azalea can compete as well, bringing Murkmire Grapple for Enigma and a suite of disruptive effects for Nuus and Zen. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my dear sweet KO, who can pack his deck with disruption for Zen, set up turns to keep Enigma in check, and bully Nuus with strong 2-card hands. But, sad to say, the best way to beat a Mystic hero is, in many cases, to play a Mystic hero. We can tell ourselves that Dash and KO are fast enough to compete with Zen, but the easiest way to get a 50-50 into Zen is by playing Zen. Azalea, KO, and Victor are plenty disruptive, but the queen of disruption must be Nuus. And while Enigma isn't much in vogue these days, having been bullied out of the meta by Zen, if she can dodge him, then she's reasonable at worst and an auto-win at best into every other hero. This also ignores the fact that some players just don't want to play Turbo Aggro or Turbo Disruption. Kasai is an example of an incredible contender pre-Mistveil who has been completely pushed out of the format by decks she just can't keep up with. Personally, I loved the heavy hitters meta and am very disappointed by what Zen has done to the format. KO is the fairest, best deck I've experienced in Flesh and Blood so far, and the Mistveil format would have been incredible if Zen didn't exist. That said, there is validity to preferring a closed format where you know exactly what the 2 best decks are and can dedicate your time to beating them. The open format of heavy hitters was a nightmare to prep for, and teching for the 5 or 6 best decks was impossible. It's also valid to enjoy doing busted shit and having busted shit done to you. I personally don't prefer being one of 2 ships passing in the night, but I won't tell you you're wrong for feeling the opposite. My goal in recording this is not to poo-poo Mistveil or the players who enjoy it. I simply noticed a trend in online discussion and wanted to weigh in on why your favorite players and content creators might seem unhappy. Mistveil fundamentally changed the way in which every hero interacts with Assassin, ninja, and illusionist, all while relegating several heroes to the dumpster until Zen leaves the format. While our arcane overlords may save us in the next set, and we are seeing some very cool spoilers, we have yet to see if Rosetta will provide an alternate path to victory, support existing slower strategies, or simply give us even faster, more disruptive heroes. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope maybe this puts some of the online discourse into context. If either of these are the case, do me a favor and smash that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. I'd love to know how you're enjoying Mistveil. How do you feel about the format? And are you excited for Rosetta? We've seen my personal favorite, Aurora, Shooting Star. You are all shooting stars starting in September. If you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. The best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily Fab gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. I have a Patreon, I have a Twitter, those links are in the video description below. And until the next time I see you for our regularly scheduled gameplay review on Daily Fab Gameplay, take care.